Let's bring in CNN military analyst, retired U.S. Army General Wesley Clark, as well as CNN contributor on Russian affairs, Jill Doherty. General Clark, first on these major developments today when it comes to tanks. How big of a game changer potentially could be the German Leopard tank and eventually the U.S. Abrams tanks? How big of a change could that be on the battlefield?
Well, I think it's very significant politically, Wolf. It depends on how many tanks actually get to the battlefield and what Ukraine does with them. General Zaluzny says he needs 300 to 500 new tanks. I'm hearing he may get 100, combination of Abrams and Leopards. Sure, it's good in case of a breakthrough or it sets up an armor brigade to punch into the south, but Ukraine still needs the deep attack systems. It needs the long-range drones or ATACMS. Really would help to have aircraft, and they've got to hold on the Eastern Front.
Good point. You know, Jill, what message does this send when it comes to tanks? What message does it send to Putin? And how do you expect Russia may respond? They were issuing all sorts of warnings. If you start sending tanks to Ukraine, this could be a game changer from their perspective. They would see the U.S. or Germany being part of the Ukrainian offensive.
You know, Wolf, they're already saying, they've been saying it since this issue came up, that this would be playing by fire, that the West would be risking expanding the war, risking a confrontation between NATO and Russia. I mean, the Russians are throwing as many red flags up as they can. And I think because they are worried, because maybe they're not complete game changers, but the Russian tanks are not adequate to go up against NATO tanks. And so they're worried. They're saying these would be legitimate targets. And again, that it would hurt relations, specifically with Germany. But I think they're worried.
We shall see. All right, General Clark, all this comes as the U.S. is now urging Ukraine to cut its losses around Bakhmut and focus instead on planning an offensive in the south. What do you make of that strategy?
I think it would be helpful if it's possible to do that. But on the other hand, you've got to be a little careful giving up ground in the east. That's really tactical decisions. It's creek line or river line by river line. It's village. It's looking at lines of communication and road networks. Yes, we need an offensive in the south. There's no doubt about it. Critical terrain is cutting off the land bridge into Crimea. And that would be the intent. And the idea would be that if we could get into maneuver warfare, we wouldn't have to match the Russians' artillery tube or artillery shell for artillery shell. But to do that, you cannot give up the eastern area. You've got to find a way to hold it. Can you get more advantageous positions? Can you shorten the lines a little bit? Maybe. But this is a tough call that the Ukrainians, they don't want to give up their territory. It's their country. So what they want is to hold that and punch south. To do that, they need more tanks, they need long-range fires, and they need the logistics to keep it all on the battlefield.
It looks like they're about to start getting all that. All right, retired General Wesley Clark, Jill Doherty, guys, thank you very, very much. Let's continue the discussion right now with Democratic Senator Richard Blumenthal of Connecticut. He's a key member of the Armed Services Committee. I know you're just back, Senator, from this bipartisan delegation you were on. You went to Kyiv, you met there with President Zelensky. How significant is this apparent breakthrough right now for the U.S. and the allies to start providing Abrams and Leopard battle tanks to Ukraine?
It is profoundly significant, Wolf. We heard again and again, not only from President Zelensky, but from his top military leaders, that these tanks, remember the firepower, the armor they have, the mobility, are essential to defending against the onslaught, the Russian offensive that is anticipated not months from now, but literally weeks away. And one of the key military leaders said to me, why don't you trust us? In effect saying, we have used what you've given us to such great effect. They pushed them away from Kyiv, the Russians. They have made major progress in the east. Now the conflict is deadlocked, and the Ukrainians want to mount their own counteroffensive, and the tanks are essential. But here's the key point, Wolf, time. Time is of the essence. Time is not on their side. So they need these tanks literally tomorrow, not months from now. Training, transport need to be compressed.
because you keep pointing out, Senator, this is, in your words, a critical turning point in the war that we're seeing right now. What will it take in the upcoming spring fighting to convince Putin he simply can't win in Ukraine?
What it will take is success on the ground and an offensive that puts in play Crimea and points close to the border with Russia so that Putin feels the heat of their military prowess. The tanks are important as a message to Putin that he's not going to fracture or divide the allies, as has been part of his goal all along. And you're absolutely right. The war is at a critical turning point, a time of maximum danger, but also major opportunity. And I can't emphasize strongly enough how important time is. And there's a larger lesson here, Wolf, that I would say we all ought to take from this experience. We have provided what is needed when the Ukrainians have requested, but often only after delay. The HIMARS artillery, the Patriot missile defense, some of the other arms. We need to take the lesson to say yes. That ought to be the default. Yes, until we find a persuasive reason to say no, because the delay often takes a toll in blood and lives on the battlefield.